I said it before and I'll say it again.
That scene, that last scene.
What does it mean?
I'm the dude, you know?
Get the fuck out of here. No, I cannot. That final scene starts now.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of That Final Scene, the podcast where we break down movie and TV endings. This is Sophie. I am your host, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Simon and Ben. Hello.
Hello.
Yo.
Hi. Okay, so in this episode, we're not going to do a community segment because we have so much to talk about. This is official blockbuster season episode.
Yes.
So I just feel like we have to get right into it. How are you guys doing? Vibe check after Oppenheimer. And did you guys watch Barbie as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, not
Okay.
yet. Barbie will possibly be this weekend.
Okay. Quick vibe check. How are you doing?
I feel cheerier than I did after the film. That's for sure. I mean, it's a horrendously bleak watch.
It's going to take a few watches to kind of really grasp it
it's
all
weird.
as well.
Do you know what? In a really weird way, I'm looking forward to watching it again.
Yeah.
And trying to, because it's such a dense film that I think there'll be a lot in the same way with a lot of Nolan films, apart from one which I'll talk about in a minute.
Not least
on other
because
rewatches.
he's messing around with time a lot again, and you have to keep your eye on which era he's in.
Yeah, and I was thinking that on the changes in color, and you'd be seeing certain pieces from the same time that were in black and white. Now you're seeing it in color, thinking about, okay, well, whose perspective is that coming from? And there's a lot. I mean, yeah.
So you two went to see the film together.
Yes, in IMAX.
It's the first film I've watched in a long, long time that felt like a cinema experience with a room full of people.
Yeah.
All experiencing it together.
Packed.
It must be about 500 people in there.
Easily, yeah. I've not, even pre-COVID, I can't remember the last time I saw a cinema that busy. I think when I went to the midnight screen. I remember going to the midnight screening of The Force Awakens when Star Wars kind of came back.
Yeah. And
that cinema I remember being packed out. But that cinema wasn't as big as the IMAX that we went to. And it was just, it's really nice. It's quite funny because obviously Nolan had the whole thing during COVID of being releasing Tenet and sticking with that and being Tenet's going to keep cinema going through COVID. And actually what it did was kind of tell streaming services and movie houses to be actually maybe you should just release it on streaming services because it's not worth the hassle of trying to release it in cinemas. And now a couple of years later, he's come along with something alongside Barbie is getting people to the cinema in droves. Everyone is obsessed with it and wanting to either see one or both. He's kind of done it, but a couple of years later, or he's not saved cinema, but he's him and Greta Gerwig have reinvigorated it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what you think on this, but because we've all observed and we've seen the Barbenheimer phenomenon everywhere on social, I do feel the weird winner in this is actually Oppenheimer. I feel it got a lot of free marketing through Barbie because of the memes. It was the first time, and this is with people offline where I'm chatting to people that are not really Nolan fans, they're quite mainstream, moviegoers that they would never go and see Oppenheimer, and they were oh yeah, next on my list after Barbie is gonna be Oppenheimer. I'm you've never seen a Nolan film besides Inception, so for me that has really benefited Nolan in a way.
I think that also kind of speaks more to Oppenheimer itself, though, because I think it's a very culturally relevant film. Even though it's a film about the 40s and 50s, it kind of feels, considering every week there's something in the news about the threat of nuclear war, it feels like quite an important fit. As historical biopics go, it's quite an important one.
It's a huge story. I just think people, what I found, which is why Marvel and dumb movies have done well for so long, is that I find that a lot of people these days, after COVID especially, go to the cinema just to escape. And they want to see dumb stuff. So I'm quite I'm positively surprised by the turnout because first weekend you're all, with a Nolan film, you're always gonna have impressive turnarounds.
$80 million, I think.
Yeah, but I think with this one, he's just looking incredible.
I think as well on that. This year in particular, or maybe the last 2 years, have shown that, and maybe Disney have done Universal and other production companies a bit of a favor in that they've Disney have shown, oh shit, we can't keep flogging the same horse and people come to the cinema now because people aren't just going to see Marvel movies anymore. And Barbie and Oppenheimer kind of proved that people do still want to go and see like carefully crafted and thought out films, because Barbie is as well. Like I haven't seen it yet, but anyone I've spoken to who's seen it is that it's more than just, you know, like a movie about a doll. Like it's you know, I hate using the word meta and like saying it's on different levels, but that seems to be what it is. And it kind of proves that people don't just want to go and see another fucking superhero film. They want to go and see something other than that, because that's all we've had for the last like 10 years.
I really enjoyed Barbie.
So you saw both, you did back to back, right? Yeah.
There's so many people in Oppenheimer dressed in pink.
But it was so weird to see like, the Oppenheimer people and the Barbie people, like the difference.
What order did you do it in?
Barbie first. That was the unconventional route. Because when I asked people on social, like, what would you do first? 76% of people said Oppenheimer first and Barbie second. And at first I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because you have to cleanse your palette, as Isarai said, with Barbie. However, I was like, I know myself and I know I'm going to have to process the Nolan film properly.
I think I joked about that after we left the cinema. I said to like Simon and Ellie, because we all went together, I was like, oh, Jesus, yeah, it'd be good to see Barbie now to like relax the mind. But actually, in hindsight, I think Oppenheimer like kind of asks so many questions that you have to think about that. I probably wouldn't have enjoyed Barbie because I would have been sitting there still kind of dwelling on what I had just watched. So I think I probably, if I was doing it, I'd have gone Barbie first.
It makes a lot more sense.
It'd allow me appreciate Barbie more.
It makes a lot of sense because once you see Barbie, you are in the moment, but then you kind of, at least I kind of forgot about it. When I was watching Oppenheimer, I wasn't like thinking of Gosling's six pack. So
how would you
it's hard not to.
How would you explain Barbie to us then?
It's Greta Gerwig's Inception. So it's Barbie entering the real world, and she has a lot of fun, and she's also very terrified because she sees the real world for what it is, which is like patriarchy wins, you know? So just having a lot of, he has a lot of thoughts about like, okay, what can I learn from this and how can I apply it to Barbie Land? And the one thing that surprised me with this film is that at least the way I saw the trailers and all the marketing materials, I thought it was going to be 75% Barbie and like 25% Ken. As in, like, Ken is just there to be, like, the toy that we all know. But Gosling had a lot of screen time, and his character had a lot of, quote-unquote, depth, and a whole, like, storyline that was even more compelling than Barbie's, if I'm honest.
He's not just Ken, then, I guess, as all the marketing is.
I don't know. He's not just Ken. That's the thing. Or maybe he just Ken. He's loving it, but he's having an existential crisis. So the one thing that I wasn't... Going into the film, one of the things that I feared was that it was going to be this sort of like full feminism, you know, sort of thing, and being too quote unquote woke for its own good. And I feel like it doesn't do that. If anything, kind of speaks about how our current world and like patriarchy doesn't serve men either. And here are the reasons why. So it doesn't just be like men are useless, like women rule, you know, which I was worried about. So I thought it was very smart. A couple of jokes didn't land with me. I thought they were a bit too on the nose. Like they make a joke about Zack Snyder.
I heard about this. I heard about this that they were like, we didn't think it was going because apparently all of Snyder's fans have gone crazy about it.
Of course they have, yeah.
Because Snyder fans are just like frat boys. I mean, Snyder fans might be listening to this and take massive offense, but after I saw Justice League, that's what I thought.
Well, that's the thing. It tried to, make that point, but I don't think it landed very well. It just felt a bit forced as a joke. So I get the sentiment, but it didn't quite work for me. And then there was there was one speech in particular from America Ferrera that was again a bit too we women, you know, for me. But other than that, I think it fully worked. And it looks beautiful. It's like Wes Anderson type of like cinematography, just gorgeous. And I love what they did with the miniatures as well. So there's no like a lot of CGI, just you can see the craft and it's really well done.
Would you liken it to any film you've seen before? Is there anything similar that it reminded you of?
No, not really. The type of, it's very sarcastic. And I haven't seen that in a very long time. So it's almost like a safer Tropic Thunder because it is is meta and sarcastic in that sense. It's not politically incorrect.
I was going to say, no one does blackface in Barbie, right? Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of offensive things that are happening in Barbie, but they're being done as a way to prove a point.
Right, I see.
On the flip side, in the real world, you know, catcalling. But it's quite unique. And it is true what they say about Gosling's being one of the best performance in a very long time. It just, what he does is just superb. Like
steals the scenes. Yeah,
for sure. For
a bit of side reading, or should I say watching, a couple of years ago, Donald Glover was on SNL and they did a sketch of Barbie's Instagram and these three people who are being interviewed to run Barbie's Instagram. And it's Pete Davidson, I can't remember who the actress is, and Donald Glover are giving these options for what Barbie's Instagram should be. And Donald Glover's are all like really depressing. And his last one is like, look over there. There's Barbie. She doesn't even realize she's a toy. And then it feels like, having seen the trailer and then what it was, the first thing that came to my head was, did they really just turn that whole the premise of that SNL sketch into a film?
Hi guys, welcome to your first day as interns at Mattel, the Barbie division. You're all here because of your interest in toy marketing or in Barbie herself. I'll let the senior VP of Barbie social media elaborate more on that.
Who is Barbie? Barbie is fun. Barbie works hard and plays thoughtfully. She has one boyfriend. She is impossible. She is girl to the max. Barbie is current. You understand?
Yes, exactly. And last year, we launched her very popular Instagram account, which allows her to connect with her fans online. Now, you three will be helping out with the captions.
Why don't we give it a try?
What would be a fun caption for this post, Tamra?
Love my juice and my chocolate bar.
That's not a chocolate bar. It's a clutch.
It's fine. You.
It's like Barbie holding a handbag or something, isn't it?
And then later in the sketch, we get.
I overheard a woman at the supermarket say the strangest thing. She said, "There goes Barbie. Poor thing. She doesn't know she's a toy. Created by a corporation. Silly thing has never wondered where the car or the house came from. And the truth is, I'd never thought of those things until today."
He's almost describing the film.
He's basically describing the plot of the film.
Pretty cool.
When I saw one of the last trailers, thinking about it coming up to release, I was like, "That's the Barbie film, right? Like this is where they've got it from." Yeah.
So funny.
What else have you seen? What else have both of you seen other than?
I watched the Nike Air film.
Oh, I've heard it's good. Yeah,
we talked about. Yeah, I saw it a few weeks ago. You don't remember?
It's on Prime.
Talking about it. Sorry.
Yeah,
I can't remember what was your review of it.
No, I loved it. Yeah.
Good Matt Damon performance. It's
and Ben Affleck. Like Ben Affleck was good.
It's a very feel-good love letter to consumerism, I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
But it did feel like viewing the world when it was a much more optimistic place, which felt quite fun and nice, and kind of disconnecting from
the world of advertising and marketing in general felt much more
innocent.
Yeah, like ambitious as well, and not looking at like going for something that's so risky.
Yeah, I felt like it was like a kind of feel-good montage all the way through. It was just like happy ending music all the time. It's a good weekday dinner on your knee film.
Yeah, that's the kind of...
Yeah, it's on Prime, isn't it? Is that how you watched it?
I can't remember. Yeah, I think so.
And Viola Davis is really good.
Yeah, it was a little bit like Moneyball, but not as clever.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Moneyball.
Yeah, I think Moneyball's superb.
I don't always go to... Even as someone who likes sports, and actually one of the things I've been watching is the Women's World Cup because it's on, which is amazing, I think. I would, even though it's on fucking really early in the morning, I would go and encourage people to watch some of the games. But I don't really go to sports films as someone who likes sports. But Moneyball, I think, is brilliant.
Yeah, and that's a testament to it because I'm not interested in baseball at all. But I thought it was brilliant. It was a bit like The Big Short in that they sort of explained the mechanics of the economy,
science and the
economics behind it really well.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I've watched quite a lot actually.
Go for it, no.
Yeah, so in build up to watching seeing Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, I also watched Mission Impossible 1, 3, and 4.
Good grief.
Why these three in particular?
Because I'd already seen Rogue Nation and Fallout quite recently, and the second one's shite.
Okay.
So I decided to skip the second one, which I might rewatch it in future, just for that opening rock climbing scene and that weird scene on the plane, even though the idea of planes crashing freaks me out, so I don't like that opening sequence. And I watched that, and then obviously went to see Dead Reckoning, which I loved. You posted on your Instagram about it, and you weren't. Not that you weren't keen on it, but
really liked
I thought it was like. Do you know what? Do you know what made me? I weirdly got really sad after seeing it because I thought to myself, Tom Cruise is 60 years old, right? He is not going to be able to do this forever, and he's probably the only person in the world who's currently making, like, himself films like Mission Impossible, which are just like 2.5 hours of just incredible action, all shot as practical. Like, I know we can talk about like Oppenheimer and what they did in the practicality of that, but like the stunts that he does as like a 60-year-old man in these films that are just so enjoyable, he'll be gone soon and we just won't have that. We just won't have that anymore. Like, who is the next Tom Cruise? I don't think there is anybody who is doing what he does.
Yeah, the AI version of Tom Cruise probably in 20 years.
Yeah, from Dead Reckoning. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to be sad. I mean,
Really?
No, I'm not. Don't feel an emotional connection.
In recent years, I feel like I've developed, especially in the role he's on with the Mission Impossible films and Top Gun last year, I've developed like a much greater appreciation for like him as like his place in cinema and what he's done. Like, I think everybody goes on about the Scientology stuff, even though he doesn't really talk about that anymore. I think he's learned, he's had good PR.
The PR is doing
like they've tidied his reputation up quite a lot. But I think for what he's done for cinema, like you can't deny, like Mission Impossible has to be one of the highest grossing franchises of all time, especially the last few. It's crazy.
So, for me, it's just so firmly mainstream. You know?
Yeah.
So,
but it's not trying to be anything other than that.
Yeah.
But I think like, and this is hard for me to say, as someone who loves the Bond films, the last 3 Mission Impossible films, I would say, are probably better than anything the Bond franchise has done in the last 10 years. And that's hard to say, like, because Skyfall's a great film, and I didn't hate Spectre, and I did like the last one. You know, I know everybody kind of went crazy about them killing him off. But I had quite a connection to that film. But just as like, if I want to watch and enjoy a film, Mission Impossible all day long.
Mm.
Especially Dead Reckoning.
Bond peaked at License to Kill.
Yeah, fair.
That's so funny. Mini spoilers. If you haven't watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, please skip a minute.
So have you guys talked about this yet?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, briefly.
Okay.
Like, I think 2 comments on like Instagram page.
I don't know how to talk about it without giving major spoilers because you are here.
It's fine.
Simon.
I don't mind.
Do you mind?
Go for it.
So the person who died, I felt like there was a lot of disservice done around that character, and like we briefly talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should I just say it?
It's fine.
Yeah. Elsa dies.
Okay. Yes.
There you go.
And arguably,
Dude, we've just watched Oppenheimer where we all know what happens and we've all managed to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah, as in, well, in my opinion, she was the best thing that happened to the franchise, and to give her like a death that was made, to say the least. Like the fight scene, I felt like was quite basic.
Oh, I disagree. I thought it was a great fight scene.
I thought it was very basic.
Because that's what she's been known for the last 3 films, is like hand-to-hand fight scenes.
Oh,
I thought
yeah,
it was a really
of
good
course.
one.
Yeah, like it wasn't the way she died. It was the fight scene. Like even like Gabriel, like I just didn't think it was anything interesting. The choreography, however you're gonna call it, it was quite basic by the bridge.
I felt I've that scene, that whole thing in Venice where he is trying to get to the bridge as well. I have actually probably in Oppenheimer as well. It's one of the most tense moments I've ever felt in cinema. Generally being like gripping the edge of the seat, being like, "What the like? Oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, fuck, this is insane."
That's my second. I thought it was a very dumb plot line because when you're being given the chance to save, I'm not saying you're in love of your life, but someone that you're very close to with someone you met 5 minutes ago, and you end up making the decision of not making a decision and killing the person that is actually closest to you. So he was given a choice, either go with Hayley Atwell's character or Ilsa, and he wasn't able to make a decision.
Yeah, because
he wanted to save both.
But that's the whole point of the film. That's been the whole point of all the Mission Impossible films, is that Tom Cruise won't make that choice, though, and that's the consistency with it, is that he'll never do that.
How does he not make the choice?
Your man tells me, he's like, pick someone right here and right now who I have to kill.
Yeah,
and he won't. He straight up refuses.
Oh, so then the baddie just chooses for him.
No, a couple of other things happen that like lead to basically this big chase scene and all this kind of stuff.
I will admit
Hayley Atwell's character is annoying. I will give you that. I will give you that.
I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. So I guess it's been consistent because we always know that he's gonna succeed, and now that it doesn't succeed, it kind of falls flat on its face because the last time we see Ilsa's body is like no one even picks the body up. Like she just left there, and then the next scene is Hayley Atwell, and they recruit her. Like there's not like a moment of silence. Like let's bury Ilse. Like let's give her like, girl, you
I
did
love
well.
the fact that you want to respect this.
Yeah,
character.
exactly. Sorry. So this is my part here. Who go like a moment of silence when the world is going to end?
Dude,
You can't have a moment of silence because then there's no moments of silence for anybody because we're all dead.
Come on, it's their best friend. Like they're supposed to give her like a burial, like give her something.
Tom Cruise has already walked away from his wife in this film franchise. He can walk away from Ilsa. Yeah. Oh, Simon, there's so much you don't know.
Good Lord.
Well, they should have learned from their mistakes and honor the dead. I don't know. I just felt like she was such a pivotal character in the film. Like it was. What was?
Did
Simon
you feel
Pegg's
quite an
character.
emotional attachment?
I would just like she would just thrown away like a fucking toy, and like now we're on to the next toy that is annoying and no.
Yeah, but also, bear in mind, we also have a whole other film to go into now, which that could play a massive
and now
part
we're gonna
in.
have the
I think
annoying
you're judging
one.
it too early.
And we're gonna have the annoying one
She's
now.
going to
who
peel
didn't
off
earn-
a bloody mask and it'll be that same Ilsa underneath.
She didn't
Can you
even
imagine? That would
she
be
didn't
amazing.
even earn her place, Hayley Atwell, and now we're gonna have her in the. Even though I like her as an actor, I just don't think she works in this film.
Is there an unmasking in it?
Many an unmasked.
Oh,
how many?
Oh my god!
How many?
What's
Loads.
the count? What's the mask count?
Well,
At least
Tom
3.
wears a mask within the first 5 minutes. Hayley Atwell wears a mask towards the
Is
end
the
of
mask
the film.
machine in it that prints the mask?
Yes, yeah,
I
it
love
is.
that
Yeah,
machine.
Yeah. You see the
Does
mask
Simon
machine in
Pegg
the film.
operate it? Is Simon Pegg in it?
Yes.
What's
Pegg
he
is,
like?
Pegg is back, and I think it's Pegg's
Yeah.
best film.
Yeah.
He's pegging.
Yeah.
Okay, so the things that I loved about the film, I think it does humor very well. It's probably the funniest Mission Impossible, in my opinion. At least like the lines that delivers the work. It goes super OTT, like over the top with the stunts, and I love every single one of them.
They're
like
amazing.
I don't,
It's insane.
I didn't mind how ridiculous they were. And 3, like, just the train sequence alone, like the whole.
With the bike.
Sophie, I love how
yeah.
you're such a sucker for good action.
Oh,
It is.
it's
dude.
just like you have like insane car chases, like the one in Italy, for example,
Yeah.
and Cruise comes out unscathed. Like he doesn't have a single scratch, while he's had like bizarre car crashes. So like his car has been flipped 1,000 times. He doesn't even have a single scratch. But I don't care. This is the kind of that doesn't bother me.
You can.
Like,
That's my point about it.
Is this the
bother me.
film that he made during COVID? And there was those
Yeah.
leaks of him telling off the team about...
Yeah, because it's taken them ages to release it. It's been finished for a while, hasn't it? I think they've done some reshoots, but it's been finished for quite a long time. Because if you watch, like, there's loads of behind the scenes of them filming this the train stunt or the bike stunt that Sophie's talking about.
I think I've seen the bike.
He drives the bike off a cliff and
Yeah.
then parachutes off it. All the footage, everybody's wearing masks and stuff. So it's quite it's quite interesting.
I agree with what you said because it is part 1, so like there's a lot of setup happening. I have quite high expectations with part 2, just because the villain in this one is actually an AI. Like that's the whole. So it goes.
And also,
in a way.
I will say it's an AI, and as soon as the film started, and it was like it was going to be an AI thing, I had the minute in my head of being like, oh god, here we go. And actually, by the end of the film, I was like, I don't care, because you have Gabriel, who's this like cool, sexy grey fox kind of mysterious man that is like is like the AI is just kind of a peripheral thing, that he is like the face and the voice of it, and makes it much more realistic and believable than just like, it's not like Tom Cruise is like driving down the street and then they're like the lights keep changing and like this ramp flips up because the computer made it happen. It's actually, there's like a person also doing the bidding of it, and I just thought it was great.
Yeah, someone, even though I don't think it's a realistic theory, but one of our listeners reached out and he mentioned, as we bring up this theory, he was like, I'm actually quite excited for part 2, because what if the major plot twist is that the AI has been in Tom Cruise's in Ethan Hunt's character all night long, like all time, for all this time.
Well, like a chip in his brain.
And he was basically just a pawn all along, orchestrating the whole franchise, which would be insane. But then you have no more Mission Impossible films.
That's like the premise of every time they try and like, I feel like they've said the same thing in a couple of Mission Impossible films where someone tries to frame him for the bad guy, and it's like, you have made yourself like Alec Baldwin literally says, you have made yourself judge, jury, and executioner of your own little world, or something like that. And that would be. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting theory, but that would be when I'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I think it would only work if the Entity, is that the name?
The Entity is what they call it.
Was the villain from Mission Impossible 1 somehow.
Entity, yeah. Yeah, it's John Voight.
Yeah.
Is it?
No,
Well, no, it's John Voight's the bad guy in the first Mission Impossible.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Imagine though.
Marks out of 10.
3 point. I give it a 3. 7.5.
9.
Oh.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think,
Justice for Ilsa. That's what.
There you go. That's what I'm doing. I'll knock a mark off for how Ilsa was treated and how kind of annoying
princess.
is. Literally, that's the way you're acting. Yeah, the world's Swedish princess.
Honestly, I think I wouldn't have mind as much if her successor wasn't a downgrade.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah,
It just kind of annoyed me.
One other thing I will say, before, 'cause we probably should take a break because we've been talking for quite a while. One quick note, because we were seeing Oppenheimer, I rewatched Tenet and I watched it with subtitles to see if it made sense.
Oh, okay.
Still doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Still doesn't make sense. And I will be honest with you, watching it again, the fight sequences look really fucking silly the second time you see it.
Oh man, I need to watch Tenet.
I rewatched it and I was kind of like, did I really think this was like cool and groundbreaking the first time? It genuinely looks like a bad kung fu movie.
Yeah, but I think Nolan, hasn't that been his weakest point generally? Like
Probably.
one of
Batman's is quite low.
Yeah, we had an issue. Yeah, with the Dark Knight Rises ones that we saw them and we're like, oh, these look very choreographed.
Yeah, like the Tenet ones it looks so. Pattinson's. I will say, Robert Pattinson's really good in it.
Yeah, he's really good.
It's one of the best examples of how Nolan, up until Oppenheimer, wasn't great at writing female characters. In Elizabeth Debicki, and just the fight scenes are so funny looking. They're just so clunky.
It's funny because I feel like Tenet is the thematic opposite of Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
I feel
even
like
color scheme they look completely different.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like Tenet asks the question: what would you like? Could you undo the making of an awful technology? Well, with Oppenheimer, it's like, well, it's here.
Yeah,
Nothing can be done now. So, it's a one-way street. Which is, like, I guess, that's the case with sci-fi films. You try to find a way to right the wrongs of the past, but with biopics, you don't have that luxury. Oppenheimer time. We'll take a mini break and we'll be back with the film.
Prepare yourselves.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
G.I. Jane 2. Can't wait to see it.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all want some of this?
Without much further ado,
here we go again.
Okay, time to talk about Oppenheimer and the final scene. So to quickly summarize the plot, the film follows J. Robert Oppenheimer as he oversees the Manhattan Project and the creation of the world's first atomic bombs with numerous other real-life scientists and military and government officials. As some of us know from history, the Manhattan Project is ultimately successful. We have 2 bombs that are constructed at the secretive Los Alamos facility. And then the bombs are dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, bringing an end to the war. Whether that was the best outcome for humanity is a question the film doesn't even attempt to settle. Dr. Oppenheimer himself is clearly very torn about the subject. However, that is not where Oppenheimer ends. The film is equally concerned with the protagonist's life, both before and after the project, and the after is something the film dwells on long after the bombs are handed over to the US military. Tense.
Yes.
I feel like we should have all done the stampy feet thing during
my
that,
God.
which comes back a lot in the sound.
One of the tensest scenes I've ever seen, that stamping foot scene.
Oh God, like I actually had people, I don't know if you guys noticed any actual reactions from people in the
Not
cinema.
really, actually, did you?
Well, so one person sitting beside me, I think it was when the bomb during the Trinity test, when it goes up and before they have the, because the cinema just went completely quiet because you don't hear anything. So you just have waiting for the bang. There was somebody who, like 2 or 3 seats across from me, really audibly goes, "Oh, fuck," in the back of the cinema. And I was like, are you okay?
Because when that moment happens, they let the Foley track still run. So you hear like the rustling and the breathing of people. You know, like those funny YouTube videos where like they take a classic like 80s pop star performance and then you just hear the trainers squeaking.
Like the David Bowie, Mick Jagger one, Dancing in the Street is the classic,
It was kind of like that. And it was like, you could just hear the breathing and moving and
you almost wanted to hold your breath waiting for the explosion. And then when it hit, it was like, it was so scary. Really made me jump when the actual.
But it was genuinely very, very loud as well. It wasn't.
Yeah. Oh God, seeing it in IMAX was the right idea. I think
It's funny you bring up these 2 scenes because I read interviews from Nolan and the editor of the film saying that these are almost like sister scenes because what they have in common is the element of consequence. And the reason both the sound of the bomb and the stomping are delayed is to show the consequence of our action, kind of like sit with the discomfort, because these come like a few seconds after whatever happens. You have the bomb going off and then you have the speech of Oppenheimer in that moment. So I thought that was very interesting.
Well, that scene's great because the sound in that feet stomping scene is because then when he's making the speech, it's so disorienting.
Yeah.
Because you see them all clapping and cheering, but then you're also hearing dead silence at certain parts as well. And you're getting these big flashes of light from him imagining the bomb going off. And like, it's quite a, like, I mean, if they started like pumping like the smell of like burning into the cinema as well, it would have been complete sensory overload because there's so much going on for you to try and process while also trying to empathize or like emote with how he's feeling.
Okay, so with this film, we're dealing with different, like a lot of different time periods.
Yes.
Would any of you like to attempt describe what?
Well, it's in 3 sections that do the typical Nolan thing of like they overlap and they cross over like quite a lot. Whereas, so it starts with his early life, pre-war, even when he's studying in Europe, he's studying in Cambridge, and then goes to Germany and meets these scientists. And then there's the middle section of the film, which is actually the building of the bomb at Los Alamos, the Trinity test, all of that. And then the second, and then the third and kind of other timeline that is also being interwoven is these trials that he went through maybe 10 years after the war, trying to revoke his security clearance because he basically had a falling out with Lewis Strauss, who's played by Robert Downey Jr., which I think is Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance as an actor.
Phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. And basically their relationship and their falling out that happens over a conversation with Einstein and this kind of slight that Strauss sees towards him, and how
there's
that
another reason on
deteriorates.
top, isn't there, where he
humiliates him. He humiliated
hearing.
him in front of at a hearing. Yeah, and basically the deterioration of that, and 2 kind of different hearings. You have the hearing where Strauss is being put up to become a member of the government, where he's kind of being asked all these questions about the trial that then we also see of Oppenheimer, which is where he was having his security clearance revoked and basically having his entire life dragged through the mud because his ex-wife was a communist, his current wife used to be a communist, his brother was a former member of the Communist Party.
He had affairs.
He had affairs. All these really things that are really fucking frustrating to watch because you think of how stupid how stupid McCarthyism was and the fear of communism, how fucking stupid that was. And that actually gets, like, I think Simon and I talked about this afterwards. Watching that in films is so incredibly frustrating because you know it's real and you know how unjustified and how stupid it is.
And how much damage it inflicts on the world. It's a bit like the war on drugs, I think. It's a similar like red herring, and it's just been a complete failure.
Yeah,
massively so.
And it was just used as a smokescreen for America to be able to do whatever it wanted because it was in the name of like, is he a commie? It's just like, it doesn't, it's not relevant.
Well, but towards the end of the film, we find out that all of this has been orchestrated by Strauss. So they just needed to find reasons, like no matter how credible because you could tell that it was a crucifixion, like in a way, like they were just trying to cross him, really. And they had a lot of reasons for that, but it all backfired for Strauss as well.
And I think that even seems to backfire for everyone. You get this scene with Gary Oldman where he's playing President Truman. Is it? Yeah. Where and his, I mean, it's a fantastic scene. I mean, Gary Oldman does really well to leave a mark, and he's only on screen for about 60 seconds, where he says,
calls him a crybaby. He says, "Don't
let that crybaby back in here." Because Oppenheimer says to him, "I feel like I have blood on my hands," and he says, "You're not the one who dropped them. You're the man who built the bombs. I'm the one who dropped them." But
it's funny that's not correct, is it? Because you don't think of that president of Truman when you think of the end of the Second World War. You think of Oppenheimer, because it's his name that's more attached to it than Truman.
Yeah. Okay, so how does the film actually end? It's a tough question because ultimately the final show step back. The final scene is with Einstein and Oppenheimer pretty much.
It's revealing
what actually was discussed. So we learned that the two weren't speaking about Strauss at all, and even though that's what he thought, but rather their fears regarding the technology he's loosed upon the world. So I have this quote right here from Einstein where he said, "They'll pat you on the back, tell you all is forgiven. Just remember, it won't be for you, it will be for them." So at this time, we see a middle-aged Edward Teller, that is Benny Safdie. He was so good in that film.
Yeah, Benny Safdie was great.
Whom we had seen earlier testifying against Oppenheimer, shake Robert's hand, but Kitty Oppenheimer, Emily Blunt, refuses to shake. Oh my God, just incredible to shake Teller's. Now, however, comes a key moment, and the one that strikes the dark note that the film closes on. As Einstein turns to leave, Oppenheimer reminds him of an earlier conversation they had before the testing of the first atomic bomb, when the Manhattan Project physicists were worried that the chain reaction caused by the atomic bomb might never end. And then Oppenheimer says, "When I came to you with these calculations, we thought we might start a chain reaction that might destroy the entire world." And Einstein asks, "What of it?" And Oppenheimer says, "I believe we did." As the camera closes in on his face, we cut with a series of modern nuclear missiles. And I mean, those final frames are just incredible. We see actual footage. We see an image tied to a memory earlier in the film from William Borden, who recalled being in a plane watching German V-2 rockets headed toward England. We see explosions across the surface of the planet. Then a ring of fire begins to consume the earth. And then the very last image of the film is Oppenheimer's face in extreme close-up, staring at the droplets in the pond and closing his eyes. Which is actually... Wasn't it the very first scene of the film, him, the young version of himself, looking at droplets?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, which is like, here's how he used to view the world, like the possibility, like the potential, and now he can only see destruction.
Or even the ripples that the droplets cause.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the film is like, the earlier parts of the film especially is like, is a lot of him struggling to come to terms with how he sees the world and struggling with that. And then he gradually comes to terms with that and builds the bomb, and it changes to, because remember, he's a Jewish guy, isn't he? He's the son of a Jewish mum and
because
that's not really touched on that much in the film, is it? Because they don't make a lot of that.
The beginning, maybe. Yeah.
He does make that reference to. He makes a couple of comments about it. So he's like, makes the comment about, I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb, and he says the thing. Somebody makes a comment, maybe it's Matt Damon's character, and he says, Don't forget, it's not your people they're killing. And it's not your people they're hoarding into concentration camps. So it is quite, there's a couple of different references made to it, but it's not front and center. Whereas actually...
But it's not made out to be his main driver behind building the bomb. It's not like it's not presented in the film like that. And also because he never knows when the bomb's going to be ready, does he? Because presumably if the bomb was ready earlier, they probably would have done it on Berlin or something.
Yeah.
Who knows how different Europe would be now if that had happened.
Yeah.
How did that final scene make you feel?
I thought it was a really nice landing for the film. Yeah. I thought the idea of actually it has set off a chain reaction around the world, and it really made me think about the proliferation of nuclear weapons in Russia right now. What if someone overthrows Putin and gets their hands on the nuclear button? Yeah. What happens then? Or what happens if Trump gets back into the White House and goes nuts or something? And who knows? So it did make me think a lot about that.
It was so like, it's funny because it's the first time, at least in my experience, that it kind of gives like grim cinematic life to a generational fear that we all know exists, because that technology is available and it could be used anytime. And you're right, I think the timeliness of it is unfortunate but also very true. So I thought it was one of the best Nolan endings. One of the best Nolan endings that I've ever seen.
I enjoyed the ending more than Inception with the spinning top.
I agree. I think it's probably the best ending to it's probably his best ending to a film.
I agree. It's my favorite.
It's possibly his best film.
It's not a challenging ending. It's not particularly clever. It just made a lot of sense.
It's not supposed to be, because I think it's a challenging film. The ending doesn't need to challenge you because you're already confronted by this massive. It's not even a moral question for us. It's a moral question that was asked by one man, and we're just being shown how he then dealt with that before and after he made the decision. It's not trying to get you, it's trying to get you to empathize with him and then also scare the shit out of you.
Yeah. And I thought, that's the scene with Einstein in particular, and the way it's revealed, like the way it was revealed and what they were talking about was so well done. And it speaks to, and I think we've talked about in the Prestige episode, where it's like, you know how Nolan has those pivotal scenes in every film where the key protagonist realizes something in that scene and then everything turns on its face. You had that with the twin revelation with Prestige. You had that with Interstellar, where McConaughey's character goes to his young daughter, like the young version of his daughter, and he says goodbye to her, and knowing that he will never see her again. Like, it's all those things where it's like these characters obsessively turn to these moments. And one of the things that stood out to me was that, so this scene actually took place, a couple of years after the bombings, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's like 49, 50 maybe?
Yeah, so he was still kind of riding on the high of being a celebrity. He hadn't had that realization at the time that he was truly a destroyer. So when we came...
I don't know, I think he had. I think that's the whole point of the stomping scene, is that I think as soon as it happens, that he talks quite a lot about the point that, we've built the bomb. Who are we to say how it should be used? I think as soon as it's used, he realizes exactly what he's done.
I thought
that's the whole point of that stomping scene, and the girl with her face peeling off and stuff like that. It's the realization of, Kenneth Branagh's character, where he says, you're the man who gives them the power to destroy themselves. I think he, in that moment, as soon as it's used and he sees that how much more devastation it's actually caused, because then that comes back in a couple of scenes later where he's being interrogated about it, and they ask him, how many people actually died, and he's like, how many did you predict? And they predicted 70,000. It ends up being 110,000 or something in both cities. I think as soon as that happens,
the additional,
the fallout's
like 230,000 or something.
A $250,000, wasn't it? Yeah. I think as soon as that happens, he knows exactly what he's done, and then the rest of the film, and that's why it's interesting with the crossing over of timelines, is because this man who's grappling with this thing that he's done, like, it has committed almost, like, could be committing genocide almost. One man.
However, you do see him going out and giving speeches and stuff, like in the aftermath of what happened. He didn't give up on that.
But
legacy.
They never really expose his thoughts. Like, there's no scene with Oppenheimer going, did we really need to drop them? Like, was it enough of a deterrent in itself?
So for me, that giveaway came with the hearings, because you know how, like, it was pointed to him repeatedly how distant and passive he was throughout the hearing, where everyone was like, where are you going to fight back in this? And he would just, like, silent and distant.
And they were implying that it was some kind of form of self-flagellation.
That's exactly what I thought, that this was his way of being like, I deserve all of this, like almost like a punishment. Bring it on. I have nothing to say. For me, it was interesting that they were speaking to his character and, like, his attitude, and I feel like it was different to what he was telling people, like how he was reacting 1-2 years in. I could be wrong, but I thought that was an interesting change in attitude, really, from what I've seen from him throughout the film. Cool. Anything else that we want to touch on when it comes to the final
I had a
scene?
really very ridiculous comment to make.
Go for it.
The Strauss character played by Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
He really, really reminded me of the baddie in Beethoven. Because
that's a great way to
in Beethoven, there's a vet that, like, is really bad, and he like antagonizes the kid's dog on purpose to, like, rile it up, and then pretends it attacks him. He literally is a spitting image of Strauss. In fact, I was a bit like, could it be him?
Yeah.
But obviously that film was from, like, the 80s or something.
That is so funny. Well, I think that, Oh, sorry, Ben.
I just think there's so many elements that kind of go together. Like, it's hard, like, it's really difficult saying it's a perfect film. I think I'll probably be able to say that on a couple of rewatches, maybe once I've, like, digested a bit more. But when you look at it, like, as a sum of its parts, like, the sound design is fantastic. The practical effects are fantastic. Nolan's, it's like one of his best written films. I think obviously there's a lot of timelines going on and it could get confusing, but I didn't feel it actually got that bad compared to some of his other films where you're like what the fuck is going on? Like, what's happening?
I was a little bit worried that the history wouldn't be accurate.
No, but
it's like it's treading a very fine line, isn't it, between kind of mainstream, like, big budget mega blockbuster and then a very sensitive historical document.
Yeah.
And I think it passed.
Oh, I agree.
From
Yeah.
what I know about the Second World War.
And I think
I didn't feel like it had any particularly strong agendas politically, which I was a bit worried about. It was more like to leave us wondering about the guy's guilt and the effect of what he built and how that then changed history in the future. He left it very open.
And the
which
genius
is nice.
and the genius of it all is that Nolan kind of saves his ass, in a way, by having the colored scenes being the subjective ones, right?
Yeah.
Because he's trying to delve into the psyche of Oppenheimer, and then the black and white ones are the objective ones. And from what I read, the court hearings are like the script is almost word for word what was spoken in the in the hearing. So it's fantastic, like how it was.
That's brilliant. I need to speak to my mum, who's a massive Second World War buff.
Yeah.
She'll have.
It's made me really want to read the book.
Yeah.
Now and actually kind of and see how it comes across in the book. And then finally, I mean, every single person in that, I don't think, even from people who have just like one scene, like I said with Gary Oldman, I don't think there's a bad performance in the film. And I think there are some actors in it, like Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, maybe Florence Pugh as well, who have given the best performance of their career so far. And that's like hard. And even Matt Damon maybe as well. Like Matt Damon's
I really enjoyed
fucking
Matt Damon.
incredible in it.
Really good.
Like he is brilliant. But I think I'll be annoyed if Cillian Murphy doesn't even get nominated for Best Actor and everything. I think he should probably win it, because to also like pretty much carry a 3-hour film. Obviously there's it and him and Downey Jr. should get Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor, because the two of them as a double act carrying the film is incredible. But Murphy is just amazing. And I thought Emily Blunt was fantastic. Like she was so good. Even down to, as I say, like the smaller ones, like Gary Oldman's really good. Aaron Aldrich, who I've never really thought was that great, is fantastic in that film, as he's the guy who you were asking about, Simon, who is Strauss's kind of advisor, who it's kind of insinuated that he's gone behind his back and made these comments to Rami Malek, who's also fucking great in the film.
Iconic.
Like, who just comes out of nowhere. Like, yeah, I just thought, it's incredible. Like, I wish there was like an Oscar for
Josh Hartnett. Oh my
best
God,
ensemble.
so
Yeah,
good.
Josh Hartnett as well.
So
like
good.
best ensemble cast. There's nothing like that at the Oscars. Obviously, there is. I think
SAG. I think SAG Awards.
SAG and maybe the Emmys doing as well. I mean, incredible from start to finish. Like, just so
It's
good.
the ultimate Nolan joint. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Well, Michael Caine's not there.
Yeah, well, that's true.
That's the
What
one that's missing.
happened?
Well, that's the one that's
Scheduling
missing.
conflict? What happened?
So do you prefer Oppenheimer or Inception?
Oof, that's a great question. That's a hard question.
I think with a couple of rewatches, I'm gonna like Oppenheimer more.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it's his most mature film. Like, it just,
considering I haven't watched Inception in a while, and obviously just fresh out of Oppenheimer, even still, I think I'd pick Oppenheimer. I think, and for me, and like my interest as well, even though I love science fiction, and I think, again, Inception is like a great ensemble piece as well, and some of the ideas in it are really cool. To see Nolan kind of digging into someone that, you listen to Nolan talk about like history and physics and engineering, and you can tell that he's someone who has a really deep interest in that. And I think that comes across in the film, that, like you said, Simon, like about the history of it. He doesn't try and fuck with it so much. And I think the reason he doesn't do that is because he respects the subject matter so much and respects the people whose story he's trying to tell. He doesn't want to do a Tarantino where, the Manson family get all fucking caught up like Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, because that was one of my concerns. While I was watching it, I was thinking about how it reminded me of The Imitation Game slightly, because it was the story of a guy who discovers and builds something, and then his past is dragged up and used to break him down. In the case of The Imitation Game, he's gay. In the case of this, it's communism. Thinking about the Enigma Code reminded me of the film U571 and how ridiculous.
Another McConaughey classic.
Where the Americans discover the Enigma Code and completely crack it on their own. And I was a bit worried that something like that might happen in this film, but it absolutely doesn't.
Where they hijack the submarine.
Yeah.
And actually, do you know, one more thing to note, and I'm sure everybody's seen this, but and one of the reasons I rewatched Tenet is that one of the lines they talk in Tenet about Trinity and Oppenheimer and the idea of igniting the atmosphere. And supposedly that was one of the things with Nolan that, when he had that in that film, that made him look towards Oppenheimer and the idea of this film. So yeah, if you go back and rewatch it.
So I remember when I was a kid, my dad teaching me about critical mass and about how nuclear bombs work and about how they were frightened of this chain reaction.
Well, it just keeps going,
and it came across really well in the film, actually.
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic film. We solved the ending again. Okay, thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, take a second to share it on social, your stories, or with your friends. Word of mouth really keeps us going. We will be back in 2 weeks with the ultimate summer film, Point Break. Till then, long live cinema and goodbye.
Did you like it? Did you like that?
Did I like it? I loved it.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Good morning!
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.